Sometimes you do everything right. You listen, support, care. You make an effort to be understanding, to give space, but also be there. You juggle 1,000 things just to keep the connection alive, to protect what matters to you. And yet, something begins to fade. A quiet feeling at first, barely noticeable, like you're running a race with no finish line, like you're giving so much that deep down you're starting to run dry, and you can't quite make sense of it, because there's no fighting, no cruelty, no neglect. In fact, you're in what most would call a good relationship. But you're not there. You don't quite remember when you started to disappear, but you know you did. You don't laugh like you used to. Your silences are heavier. There's a version of you that you miss, and you have no idea how to find her again. Esther Perel says that, too often, in the name of love, women disconnect from themselves. We've been taught that being a good partner means self-sacrifice, adapting, being available, that the more we give, the more lovable we become. But that isn't love. That's a trap. Because no one can sustain a healthy relationship while slowly abandoning themselves. It's not wrong to want to love, to share, to care for someone. The problem begins when your place in the relationship comes at the expense of your own, when you start thinking more about what they need than what you need, when your day revolves around their plans, when you stop asking yourself what you feel like doing on a Saturday and just wait to see what's happening. That's how you start vanishing, quietly, gradually. The hardest part is that it often doesn't look like a problem. You're praised for it. You're seen as the one who always understands, the patient one, the loyal one, the one who loves properly. And so, if everyone's telling you what a wonderful partner you are, why do you feel so alone? Because it's not just about how much you give, it's about whether you are included in the love you're offering. A relationship should never demand that you disconnect from yourself in order to survive. Real love doesn't ask for personal abandonment as proof of commitment. On the contrary, true love brings you home to yourself. It awakens you. It encourages your growth. It fuels your expansion, not your shrinking. The trouble is, we often confuse love with the need to belong. And since we were little girls, we were taught that in order to belong, we must please, be good, be available. So without even realizing it, we carry that pattern into adulthood. And when we fall in love, we do the same. We please, we adjust, we compromise, even if it costs us ourselves. Esther Perel puts it clearly. There can be no desire without identity. You can't feel desire if you're disconnected from your own center. If you don't know what you want, if you don't recognize yourself anymore. That's why, when you begin to lose yourself in a relationship, the desire starts to vanish too. The passion, the spark, the longing, it all dims. Because the woman who once desired is no longer there. What remains is someone kind, functional, pleasant, but with no fire. That's when many women start to wonder what went wrong, why they don't feel alive anymore, why, even though they did everything right, they still feel empty. The answer is painful, but freeing, because they forgot themselves, because in trying so hard to be the perfect partner, they stopped being themselves. And then, silently, frustration creeps in, resentment. Not always because of something the other person did, but because you realize you betrayed yourself in order to hold the relationship together. And that's the betrayal that cuts the deepest, the one you commit against your own truth. But this isn't about blame. It's about waking up. There's something powerful in realizing you can still come back to yourself, that you don't have to choose between love and your own identity. That the kind of love truly worth having doesn't require your disappearance. The first step is honesty. When was the last time you did something just because it brought you joy, not because it was helpful or productive or approved by your partner? When was the last time you checked in with yourself and asked, how am I? What do I need? What have I been missing? Coming back to yourself doesn't mean you have to leave. It doesn't mean breaking everything apart. It means making room for you again, reclaiming space in your body, your decisions, your voice. It means saying no when something doesn't feel right, even if it's awkward. It means choosing yourself again and again, even from within the relationship. Because love should never dim your light. It should never feel like a constant effort to keep up or keep it alive. It should feel like walking alongside someone at your own pace. And for that to happen, you need to come back to your center, not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. So often we're afraid that if we stop overgiving, we'll lose the person. But if staying in the relationship means losing you, then what exactly are you keeping alive? That's not love. That's fear. That's dependency. And there is nothing lonelier than being in a relationship where you can't be fully yourself. That's why remembering who you were before the relationship, or who you are beyond the relationship, is a radical act of self-love. You might realize there are parts of you that have been asleep, talents you haven't touched, desires you've silenced. Maybe you reconnect with hobbies, friendships, spaces that once lit you up. Maybe your energy shifts, your voice becomes stronger, you begin to feel yourself again, and yes, that might unsettle your partner. You may need to renegotiate boundaries, you might have difficult conversations, but it can also open the door to a more honest, expansive relationship. Because no one should love a diminished version of you, and you should never settle for a connection that only works if you stay small. Esther Perel says that desire lives in space, in difference, in autonomy, that what keeps a relationship alive isn't fusion. It's the constant rediscovery of one another as full individuals, and that begins when each person tends to their own inner world. So if you're in a good relationship but still feel something's missing, don't ignore that voice, because maybe it's not love that's missing. Maybe what's missing is you. Look inward, ask yourself, what brings me joy? What excites me? What have I been putting off? What part of me is asking to come back to life? Being a good partner does not mean disappearing. Love isn't measured by how little space you take up, but by how truthfully you show up. And the more connected you are to yourself, the more real your love becomes. Don't feel guilty for needing to come home to yourself. Don't be afraid to take up space, because when you're grounded in who you are, everything shifts. Your boundaries, your presence, your way of loving, and that doesn't just heal you, it elevates every relationship you're in. So don't just ask if your relationship is healthy. Ask if you feel well within it, because love begins at home, and you are your first home.